One leaf beats salmon? Actually, yes. While you've been spraying poison on the red stems in your driveway, a $40 billion industry has been praying you never realize this weed actually contains more omega-3s than a wild salmon. We are exposing the global campaign to keep you buying supplement bottles while the world's most powerful plant grows for free under your tires. The driveway saboteur. It is a botanical anomaly hiding in plain sight. A biological impossibility according to every rule of modern horticulture. While you've been walking over it, an entire industry has been hoping you never look down. They need you to believe nutrition is something you buy in a plastic bottle, not something you find under your tires. While we were taught to view the emerald sprigs pushing through asphalt as a sign of neglect, scientists at Yale University were discovering a secret that rewrote the laws of nature. They found a super plant capable of a feat no other species on Earth can perform. A seamless fusion of two types of photosynthesis operating within a single cell. It is an evolutionary masterpiece that allows this survivor to thrive in extreme drought, while growing faster than almost any crop handled by man. It is the botanical equivalent of a high-performance hybrid engine, a glitch in the agricultural matrix that produces massive energy where everything else ceases to be. The herbicide industry spends billions every year to make sure you never learn its name. They have branded it a nuisance, a weed to be poisoned and erased from the suburban consciousness. This is not because it is dangerous, but because it is too powerful. You cannot patent it. You cannot control it. And you certainly cannot sell a supplement for $20 a bottle if the superior version grows for free under your tires. The 3,000-year-old jar. This is the story of the Omega Rebel. Before it was a driveway intruder, it was the foundation of the ancient world. To understand how we lost it, we must go back 3,000 years to a sealed jar in Greece. In 1050 BC, a clay vessel was sealed in northern Greece. When archaeologists broke that seal 3 millennia later, they did not find gold, but a ghost. They found thousands of tiny black seeds, each barely 1 millimeter across, identical to the ones currently defying the stones outside the museum walls. This was the signature of a survivor. By the 7th century BC, these seeds were appearing in the Samian Heraion, one of the most sacred sanctuaries of the ancient world. This was not accidental debris, it was an offering, a tribute to a god-tier food source that could sustain an empire when rains failed. By the 4th century BC, the philosopher Theophrastus was drafting formal cultivation instructions, telling farmers to sow these seeds alongside their most essential crops. To the ancients, this plant was not an intruder, it was life itself. Even the legendary physician Hippocrates prescribed it to reduce fevers and treat the inflammation of the humors, recognizing its power to cool the body from the inside out. The ocean-crossing myth. The Roman Empire carried this green fire across 3 continents, weaving it into the culinary fabric of the Mediterranean. By 1288, Bonvicin de la Riva compiled the definitive list of everything consumed by Milan. This plant sat proudly among the staples. It was known as Portulacea oleracea, or purslane. It was the plant that solved a nutritional crisis before science even had a name for it. We are told that the history of food is a steady climb toward progress, but the archive tells a different story. Long before the first European ships touched American soil, this plant had already established a kingdom across the Atlantic. History books tell us the settlers brought their food with them to tame a wild land. But when the first European explorers documented the presence of purslane in Massachusetts in 1672, they were not looking at a recent arrival. They were looking at a resident that had been there for 2,500 years. The evidence is buried in the dirt. Archaeologists in Ontario discovered seeds dating back to 1350 AD, while findings in Kentucky pushed the timeline back to 800 BC. Long before the first sails appeared, Native American tribes were already masters of this plant. They cultivated it with intention, grinding the oil-rich seeds into a high-protein flour for travel cakes that could sustain a hunter for days, and using the mucilaginous juice as a cooling salve for bite wounds and deep infections. They planted it alongside sunflowers and squash in the Eastern Agricultural Complex, utilizing it as a living carpet to protect the soil from the scorching sun. The Cretan Paradox. 2 civilizations, separated by a vast ocean, reached the same conclusion. This plant was essential, the ultimate safeguard for the human heart. They recognized a vitality in these succulent leaves that surpassed the grains of the field. They knew something we have spent the last century trying to unlearn. The mystery of why two worlds obsessed over the same weed remained locked until 1960, when a medical anomaly in the Mediterranean forced modern science to look at the blood of a forgotten people. In 1960, physiologist Ansel Keys launched the 7 countries study, tracking 12,263 men across half a century to map the path of heart conditions. He found a population on Crete that broke every rule of modern medicine. According to the theories of the time, the farmers of Crete should have been failing. They consumed a diet where more than 35% of calories came from fat. Yet, their hearts refused to fail. They possessed the lowest cardiovascular loss rate Keys had ever measured, outliving the citizens of Japan, Finland, and the United States. For 20 years, the scientific community attributed this miracle to olive oil, calling it Mediterranean magic. They saw the liquid gold but missed the green stalks growing beneath. The trees, the frozen blood, reveal. The truth remained hidden because we were asking the wrong questions. It was not until the 1980s that a new team of investigators returned to the archive of frozen blood samples to look for something deeper than cholesterol. They were looking for a specific fatty acid that was supposed to come from the sea, yet it was flowing through the veins of mountain farmers. For 20 years, we blamed the olive oil. We were wrong. In the 1980s, researchers discovered a secret that the world had ignored. They were not looking for cholesterol. They were looking for omega-3 fatty acids, the molecular building blocks of heart health. The results were staggering. The people of Crete possessed 3 times the omega-3 levels of the Dutch, yet they were not consuming 3 times more fish. The source of their resilience was rooted in the island's soil. These people were eating purslane every single day. They tossed it into salads, simmered it in stews, and sautéed it with olive oil. It was the fuel of their entire ecosystem. The goats and chickens grazed on wild purslane, transferring those marine-grade fatty acids into their milk and eggs. The people ate the animals, and the cycle of health was complete. The marine miracle on land. This island was a living laboratory where the world's most nutritious plant grew wild in every vineyard. When Dr. Artemis Simopoulos began her analysis in 1992, the numbers she recorded were so high that the scientific community suspected her samples had been contaminated. The data was pure, but the implications were revolutionary. Purslane was a marine miracle growing on dry land. Land plants are not supposed to make eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA. That is a marine secret usually reserved for deep-sea fish. Yet, here it was, pulsing through the red stems of a plant in the dirt. When Dr. Simopoulos published her findings, the nutritional profile of purslane read like a scientific impossibility. The measurements were undeniable. Purslane contains 300 to 400 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid per 100 grams of fresh leaves. That is 15 times more than iceberg lettuce and 7 times more than spinach. It is the richest vegetable source of omega-3 fatty acids ever recorded. It produces 7 times more vitamin E than spinach and 6 times more beta-carotene than carrots. It even contains betalain alkaloids, the same powerful antioxidants found in beets, which protect the brain from oxidative stress and have been linked to anti-health threat properties. It is a biological vault, overflowing with melatonin, potassium, magnesium, and calcium in concentrations that make modern superfoods look like empty calories. The unethical victory. In the Lion Diet Heart study, the results were so lopsided that doctors had to stop the experiment. It became an ethical issue to keep the standard diet away from those who were failing. Researchers were monitoring 605 patients who had already survived 1 heart attack. Half were given the standard low-fat cardiac diet. The other half followed a Mediterranean diet rich in purslane and omega-3 fatty acids. After 5 years, the data revealed a staggering truth. The group eating the purslane-rich diet had 70% fewer losses. The weed was doing what chemical medications could not. The study was terminated early because the evidence was too overwhelming to ignore. It was no longer ethical to keep the control group on the standard diet when the solution was so clear. The world had just witnessed the power of a plant that asks for nothing and gives everything. But as the medical community reeled from these findings, a different group of scientists was uncovering a secret even more profound: the photosynthesis rebellion. In 2022, Yale University scientists watched a plant do something they called mathematically impossible. It broke the laws of biology within a single cell. While most plants are forced to choose one path for survival, this one chose both, operating like a cheat code for life on Earth. Most vegetation uses C3 photosynthesis, which requires steady water. In the heat, cacti use CAM, opening pores only at night. Corn and sugarcane evolve C4 photosynthesis, a high-speed engine that handles heat but demands water. Scientists assumed these systems were mutually exclusive, but when the Yale team mapped the genes of purslane, they found both C4 and CAM operating in the same cells at the same time. The products of the nighttime reactions feed directly into the daytime pathway. It is a seamless fusion of speed and endurance, allowing the plant to grow with lightning velocity during a drought that would turn a cornfield to dust. It is like a car that runs on gasoline and electricity simultaneously in the same combustion chamber. It is nature's ultimate failsafe. When the sun is at its peak and the air is bone dry, the plant switches gears, recycling its own metabolic waste into energy while other plants are literally struggling to breathe. The unkillable ghost. This cellular rebellion makes the plant essentially unstoppable. It feeds on the very conditions that bring empires to their knees. You cannot eliminate it with heat or drought. Even if you cover the earth in plastic and let the sun superheat the soil, this plant survives. Furthermore, it acts as a soil doctor. Purslane's deep, powerful taproot can penetrate even the most compacted hardpan clay, pulling up minerals like calcium and phosphorus from deep underground, and making them available for the surface soil. When it recycles, it leaves behind a network of tunnels that allow water and oxygen to reach the roots of other, weaker plants. It was built for the end of the world, and it is currently waiting in the cracks of your sidewalk. A single purslane plant can produce 200,000 seeds in a season. These tiny black pearls are armored with a thick outer coat that protects them from fire, frost, and the digestive tracts of birds. They can remain viable in the dirt for up to 40 years, waiting for a single drop of rain. Every fragment of a stem that touches the ground can root itself and begin the cycle anew. In one university study, researchers concluded that if purslane actually fails, then everything that could possibly go right for the farmer did go right. It is a statistical outlier in the kingdom of plants. The $40 billion war. This is the botanical equivalent of a ghost in the machine. It thrives in soil so salty that most crops would wither, and it requires only 1/5 of the water needed by corn. It is the ultimate insurance policy against a changing climate. But a plant this resilient is a threat to the world we have built. There is a $40 billion reason why you were taught to see this miracle as a menace. In 2024, the global herbicide market reached a staggering valuation, fueled by the promise of total control. Corporations like Bayer and Syngenta sell products specifically formulated to hunt and remove purslane. They deploy chemical weapons like mesotrione and indaziflam into our lawns. Among these is 2,4-D, the same technology developed during a global conflict that was marketed to homeowners in 1947. We have built an entire infrastructure around the elimination of this plant. Homeowners associations prohibit its presence, and agricultural offices publish guides on how to wipe it from existence. This conflict is not waged because purslane damages the ecosystem. In fact, it is often a pioneer species that stabilizes the earth and prevents erosion. It is waged because purslane cannot be controlled. You cannot patent a plant that has been reproducing freely for 4,000 years. The global resistance. Every other source of omega-3 fatty acids is a controlled, monetized market. Purslane is the leak in their profit margin. It is a super plant that grows for free in every climate zone, asking for nothing but sunlight. The world was taught to poison its natural relief, so it would remain a customer of the pharmacy. But while the West sprays toxins, half the world is quietly sitting down to dinner. They call it kulfa, glista, and verdolagas, and they treat it as a guest of honor. In the markets of Greece and the streets of Mexico, purslane is a symbol of a kitchen that is alive. Across India, it is sautéed with garlic. In the Middle East, it is the crunch in a summer salad. In China, it has been cultivated for thousands of years as ma qi xian, a staple of both the plate and the natural cabinet. In Japan, it is one of the 7 herbs eaten in a ritual porridge to ensure good health and longevity for the coming year. These cultures never forgot the wisdom we were taught to erase. They understand that food is something that grows with you, not something purchased from a corporate supply chain. In Turkey and Iran, purslane appears in meze spreads as a cooling relief against the heat, a tradition that has survived the rise and fall of dynasties. This is a global resistance made of leaves and stems. The climate survivor. As the climate shifts and modern agriculture fractures, this ancient knowledge is a blueprint for survival. The crops we rely on today were bred for a world that no longer exists. When the wheat fails and the corn withers, purslane will just be getting started. It does not fear the coming heat. It is fueled by it. While corn requires 20 to 30 inches of annual rainfall, purslane completes its life cycle on a mere 6 inches. When temperatures climb above 95 degrees, the photosynthesis of a soybean plant shuts down. Purslane, however, accelerates. It utilizes its internal dual-engine system to thrive when the soil turns to powder and the sun becomes a weapon. The solution, we are told, is decades away. The genetically engineered super crop is already here, growing in the gravel of forgotten lots. We are spending billions to invent a resilience that nature has already perfected. It is the only plant ready for the world we are about to inhabit. How to spot a rebel. But before you can harvest this future, you must learn to see it. Look for the red stems, thick, smooth, and succulent. Purslane grows low to the earth, spreading paddle-shaped leaves in a radial pattern that hugs the ground like a green shield. The stems are juicy when broken, never covered in fine hairs. This is the crucial distinction. You must watch for the spurge, a common look-alike that often shares the same cracks. While purslane is smooth, spurge is hairy and releases a milky, harmful sap when snapped. Purslane offers only a clear, watery lifeblood. The flowers are tiny, yellow, and fleeting, opening only for a few hours in the morning when the sun hits exactly the right angle. Once you see it, the world shifts. What was once an eyesore becomes a natural cabinet. Identifying the plant is the beginning of the rebellion, but the act of eating it is where the true sovereignty lies. The first bite is more than just nutrition. It is an act of defiance against a system that wants you dependent. Reclaiming the table. The first bite is lemony, salty, and crisp. It tastes like sovereignty. When you stop poisoning your patio and start harvesting from them, you are participating in a 4,000-year-old tradition of independence. You can eat it raw in a summer salad or saute it with garlic and olive oil to rival the finest spinach. Its natural pectin makes it an incredible thickener for soups, a technique used for centuries from the bayous of Louisiana to the mountains of Lebanon. It can be pickled, stirred into yogurt, or blended into smoothies where its omega-3 concentration can fuel your day for free. Harvest the plant young in the first 6 weeks when it is most tender, but the real power lies in the seed. As the summer wanes, let a few plants go to seed. Collect the hundreds of thousands of black grains. Collect them, share them, and scatter them. You are creating a contagion of knowledge that cannot be taxed or regulated. By bringing this plant back to the table, you are reclaiming a birthright taken by chemical and industrial interests. The final vault. The herbicide industry, the pharmacy, and the industrial farm all want you to believe that health is an expensive commodity. They have built a world where vitality is locked behind a paywall, but purslane proves that true abundance is free. We have traced the journey of a survivor that outlasted the Roman Empire and cracked the code of photosynthesis. The industry does not want you to know that the supplement they sell for $20 a bottle is merely trying to replicate what this plant does for free in your driveway. The agricultural giants do not want you to realize that the climate-resilient crop they are spending billions to engineer already exists in the dust of neglected lots. They call it a weed because it refuses to be owned. The most nutritious plant on earth is waiting for you. Right now, when you choose the wealth in the dirt instead of the poison in the bottle, you are opening the vault of human sovereignty. The most powerful plant on earth is waiting in your driveway right now. Once you see it, the world shifts from a place of scarcity to one of abundance. If this archive opened your eyes, support the rebellion by liking this video and subscribing to Nature Lost Vault to ensure this wisdom is never erased again. The next vault opens soon,